Hi, welcome to our next roundtable. Got some amazing guests with me today in the studio from the UK and America. They're all people that I consider to be the go-to for me to ask a question about figure painting or figures. There's going to be a lot of information being thrown around today, so if you're watching, you've got any questions, please make sure you put a comment in a box with a little Q on it or something, just so we know exactly it's a question. And let's get straight into it, shall we? So let's bring people in. Obviously, Malcolm is going to be our host today. Hi, Malcolm. How are you doing?
Perfectly well. I'm warm, but I'm all right.
Warm. As long as it's just warm, not moist, it's fine.
I'm fine.
Moving on. So the next person we'll grab in is Robert Lane. Hi, Robert. How are you doing?
Hi there. Very good, thank you.
So, as you can see by the T-shirt that he's adorned in, Robert is the owner of Elan 13, a sculptor and a figure painter artist. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Take the artist bit off, but yeah, otherwise, yes.
Okay. Right. Okay. So, so we're going to be pulling your brains apart to get to know how to do sculpting and stuff today. So that's going to be fun. Oh, hello. I've noticed we've lost one of our guests. Maybe. Okay. Let's get Gil in next. So Gil Mondragon, as you people may know him. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. So for those that you don't know, Gil is somebody who's very, very good at figure painting. He has a lot of back history with airbrushes and not necessarily model making as too. So, Gil, I think it'd be fair to say you've earned a living as an artist. Would that be right?
Yeah. I do commission work. I do models also, but very rarely now. But yeah, I do a lot of commission work with the bigger busts, quarter scale, third scale, sixth scale, eighth scale. I don't go now. The older I get, the smaller they go. I don't really do the little stuff anymore. But that's where I started, was the Warhammer stuff, the little 28 mil. Yeah. Yeah,
cool. Right, cool. Well, thank you again for accepting this invite. I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we've got one more person to bring into the studio, and that is Rob Herring. Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Hello, Rob.
Good, thank you.
Excellent. So Rob is, again, somebody very, very good at figure painting, sculptor, has done some work, I believe, for different people in that field. Is that right, Rob?
Yes. Yeah. Well. Different people. I guess for Models for Heroes, I've been doing a series of videos for Models for Heroes, which are available on the Models for Heroes YouTube channel. But I have done bits and bobs over the years for charity work. Mostly is actually when a lot of my stuff has gone for other people. Actually, most of my other stuff has been for me.
Right. Okay. So yeah, they are the experts that are here for us. And like I said, this is episode 4 of the Fire of the Rising Sun, the build, the silly build that I decided to build, which is the Akaki Japanese carrier, a snapshot of when the only bomb hit the carrier and blew up, wounding her very, very badly. And it's linked to the journey of my health as well, which recently, a year ago, I had a heart attack and bypass and all that sort of jazz, but that's known. And what I've done is I've crazily designed this idea to depict the journey over the last year or so. And like I say, today it's all about bringing her to life is the title, which the figures. The figures are going to be the thing that's going to be showing all the passion and emotion. So before I hand over to Malcolm, because he's going to want me to shut up, I can already tell he's tapping his pen. Let's have a quick look at who's in the chat, who's with us. So we have got Joe. He's saying hello, Joe McCluskey. I hope everyone's well. Thank you very much, my friend. Dominic is there saying good afternoon to all.
Hey, Dom.
Dave Skelly's there. He's saying, personally, I'm a huge fan of Rob's work. I have a copy of Wilf, is that? I picked up at the FMS this year. It's in his stash, which I think, looking at the way Malcolm is running around, is to do with one of your new releases. Is that right?
It's a bust. It's been around for a little while, but yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you very much for getting that.
Not a problem. And then, of course, we've got Dominic there saying, Gil, a long time no see. How are things?
Dominic, how you doing?
So we will be joined by more people in the chat as we go along. And like I say, if you've got a question for any of us as we go along, let us know. Pop it in the comments and put a Q by it. If you're watching this in playback mode, then please, again, if you've got any questions, pop a comment in there. Let us know how you're getting on with this roundtable idea. And if there's a particular question about sculpting or painting, I will try my best to answer it as quickly as possible. I may have to go to the experts for some advice. So there we go. So we're all up to date, and I'm going to hand over to Malcolm.
Hello, folks. James, can you pop a picture up of the Cargill or the picture of the idea? I was just looking around just now because I thought I had a copy of Wilf in this box, but it's not. It's a scooter. I can't see it anymore. It's that one.
Hang on. Sorry, my finger was too quick.
Yes.
There we go.
It's that one. I thought he was up there, but it's a little chap looks just like Rob down there with the little sign. But yeah. Anyway. Rob, before we start, could you sit closer to the mic or turn up your microphone if you can, my friend?
Me?
Me? If that's possible.
So,
yes, you. Yes, if that's possible.
I'm a little bit closer. I could put on some headphones, which will have the mic.
Yeah, just you're quiet comparatively. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. So, right.
Yeah. So this is the image that was created with AI. It's not me being an artist and mucking around. It's just I posed the question to AI and asked it to create something that would give me some vague idea of what I'm trying to achieve. What's wrong with this picture right now is the fact that the fire is actually on the diorama, like it is. The difference between that and what I want to try and achieve is that I want to try and achieve it because, so the section of the build I'm making is not where the bomb exploded. It's just off to the back of the ship. So the piece I'm building, there'll be next to it would have been the lift that would take the aircraft up and down, and then that's where the bomb exploded, just off to the left-hand side of that lift. So what I'm hoping to do is, instead of having electronics and being very clever and all that sort of stuff, I'm going to be even more insane and do all of the lighting or the explosion by using object source like painting. So the reds and the oranges and all that will all be reflected against the figures, the bulkhead, the plane, anything that's on that model, and thus reducing the risk of me building something here, which is a meter by a meter wide, a meter square and high, basically. And then taking it to a show, which it should only be at 2 shows, hopefully. And the lighting, having lights doesn't work. So that's what I'm trying to avoid with that. Yeah. And that's why I've chosen to do that.
Oh, he's back. Hello.
Yep.
My sound, can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's better. Much better.
Well, I've got my headphones on, but also the sound went again. So that's the 3rd time. So that's a warning that if I do disappear, it's because suddenly I can't hear you.
That's
So,
fine. No
No
problem.
problem.
We can hear you loud and clear. If you could just turn your mic down now.
I can. Don't worry about that. I can solve that problem.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So
Nothing
yeah,
here.
so in that picture there was lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people. It's a couple of aircraft, but people running around in different states of panic, different emotions happening, different tasks that they're doing or were doing, and they all. I think that's going to be one of the most dominating parts of this. Is not just the structural build of it, and not just the lighting and the painting, but all the people and the right poses and the figures, and they've got to be looking like they're doing the thing. So you need to be able to convey that emotion. Yeah. Right. So I guess my first question then, so we can kick off, would be to Mr. Rob down there with his amazing microphone. When you're looking at trying to show someone's emotional state, right? So panic or fear or whatever, how would you choose the colors to put that in? Is that something you've done before, or is it not something you've done before?
Well, color can be used to show quite a bit of things. I mean, we have loads and loads of phrases in our English vocabulary to say he's feeling blue, green with envy, and all those kind of things. So color does convey emotion in that sense. How that would work in this environment is an interesting question, because we're going to have a very strong light source and that kind of stuff. So you could say somebody in some of James's little storyboards would come on to, I'm sure, things like shock and fear could be draining of colour in the face, so sort of like a pale.
Oh, I've lost your sound.
Yeah, sorry.
Lost your sound, Rob. Sorry. Let's pop you. What am I doing?
He did say that he was going to have problems with his sound, didn't he?
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's not a problem. I'm just going to add him back. Sorry, I am busy. Clunky. How's that, Rob?
I can hear you.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's cool. There we go. You're back. No. All good.
Okay. I shall continue, and I'll remember a few seconds before when you might not have heard me. So I'll try to go back to saying, in reference to color. If you're showing fear, you could color can. What we would probably use color for in painting more than anything is showing environmental space. So it could be a cold face, a drained face, a hot face in the sun, tanned, whatever it might be. So, but you could also use pale face to convey shock and fear. And it could be, certainly regarding James's storyboards and also his own story. I'm sure when the heart attack happened, he probably looked a little bit pale, so you could get elements of that into the way people looked. So that could do fear and all that kind of thing. But again, I don't know if you did hear me mention that because we're going to be dealing with a strong light source. That will make it quite interesting to see how you could do that. I guess it'd be easier on the deck in the control tower, because that's going to be a little bit away from the main light source, I would think. Well, all these questions still in my head, how it might render at different levels, but I'm sure you've got the same collection of thoughts going on and bouncing around. So you can, and there's certainly different ways of doing it. I've done it on figures after a cold march. I think it was Battle of Trenton in the American War of Independence. Right. A figure who I did noticeably cold blues and desaturated colours from everything from the uniform to his face and whatnot. So it's possible to do.
Yeah, certainly the absence of colour. Then when you talk on a fear, then that's
yeah.
That'll save you some time, James. You don't have to paint it then.
No, absolutely.
Colour or not at all.
Certainly do things, and you could desaturate elements of a piece to and then obviously there's going to be bits which are going to be significantly brighter, which you'll have to decide where they're going to be. And
okay, Gil, is it right if Gilbert, is it right if I call you Gil?
Sure.
Have you got any thoughts on the use of color? And I know that Rob said that we're going to be using bright colors in this, and that will be one of the things that might overshadow. Yeah. But have you got any ideas on use of color to show emotions?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything he said, what Rob said. The other thing, though, is the eyes. The eyes tell a story. So, depending on the size of what you're painting, it's the eyes. The skin, of course. If you're showing fear, you want to show, you use some colors there, like pale, a little red here and there, a little blue, some greens, some yellows, some purples, Payne's gray, things like that there. But it's the eyes. The eyes tell the emotion of everything. Now, it depends on the size of what you're doing and what you can get away with. But if you're doing something like, say, a quarter scale or a third scale or, something bigger, say, than a 28 or 54 mil, you want to focus in on the eyes. Because especially, when you're angry, you get a little flush around here. When you're sad, there's certain colors that you use to help, bring that out. Because that's the first place you look. On something like that, that's the first place you look. The eyes are what grabs you, and then everything else falls into place. So I agree with everything he said there. It's you have to if you're afraid, if you get a little bit more paler because you're shocked, if you're excited, you get a little bit more flushed, things like that there. So that I agree with everything he said, but I would also focus in here
on the eyes as well
for the eyes. Yeah.
I think at 35th scale it might be tricky, but it's certainly something that
exactly.
But that's going to be on that point. We say 35th scale. I did a quick search on average height of Japanese during World War II, and then scaled that down. And we kind of talk around 1/25th. We'd usually say about 50 mil roughly. It would scale out to be 4.6 centimeters for an average Japanese guy. So for your diorama, they would be even smaller. That if you're going to be true to scale, which means although eyes will be tricky to do certain things, it then becomes using eyebrows and various facial expressions, and maybe exaggerating them a bit, which would be a little bit of sculpting, a little bit of painting, maybe even accentuating them a bit. Actually, that's the point. What's the Japanese theatre where they have their masks?
The kabuki.
Yeah, so it could well be that you could maybe pull in a little bit of that into this as well, given the subject matter. It wouldn't be out of place.
I mean, in anime they use extra lines, don't they, to show surprise or
yeah.
Like right around, you could do it with a very fine brush, just come in there, a little hair, like you said, the eyebrows, excitement, shock, raise them up a little bit, things like that there. Because you're right, at that scale, doing an eye and then trying to do all that, there's very few people that can pull that off. Very few people.
Okay, brilliant.
That's going to be James. James is going to pull it off.
Thanks for the pressure, guys.
But you're gonna have lighting, so that'll mitigate a lot of it. So.
As I'm listening to what you're saying, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult, and it's going to be certainly things in which I've never done before. Sculpting, for example, I've never done sculpting apart from a sandbag. So there's an awful lot of elements to this. It's just going to be a road of discovery. But where I'm very fortunate, where you're going to see the majority of the the facial expressions, the concern, the stress, and all that sort of stuff, they're going to be mainly, I think, sort of trying to visualize it in my head. They're going to be accentuated with very strong colors from the blast and all that sort of stuff. And the other thing as well, with something in which I hadn't really considered at the beginning, was that obviously because of this power of light that's just suddenly erupted, that means there's going to be lots of shadows.
Yeah.
So I've got to add shadows in when I'm painting. So I might be able to get away with quite a few things, like, for example, doom and all that sort of thing, by just creating shadow.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily about the face. It's about the element in which that figure is in to create that emotion, that moment. Yeah. So I think I'm going to possibly be lucky with, there's going to be lots of little places I might be able to hide things in a certain way. Pulling it off is going to be the thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have a series of vignettes of events happening, and some of those, you could have 3 or 4 figures in a vignette, and only one of those faces illuminated by the light source, and the others could all be in shadow. So you don't really need to have to worry about too much detail on those. They're just extras helping the scene. It just needs to have one head turning or looking in the way that catches it. And that would reduce the amount of work.
Yeah.
I just want to bring in Mr. Lane here. With you doing your sculpts, your amazing sculpts, are you considering the shadows when you're doing the contours and the lines and things like that, or are you just considering the shape if you're trying to show an emotion or something like that? How does it work?
You've got to be clear what you're trying to show. Things can go horribly wrong if you're not really clear what you're trying to do. And certainly if you're looking at emotion, you're looking at expression and body posture. And that's key. And I think we need to remember that to me, as a figure modeler, sculptor, painter, that everything but the figures is a backdrop. And as mentioned already, it's a stage. That's the stage set. The emotion is carried forward in what the figures are doing. And so that it's not like a TV drama where you're up where you're with it and you can be subtle. This is like stage. This is like going to the theatre, and so you can't be subtle with it, or not too subtle. You've got to really push things to the limit without it looking ridiculous. But I've often sculpting, I think I've put something that is quite emotional or dynamic, and by the time you finished it, it's all lost. It's all gone. Right. You've clothed it. You've changed a little bit, and all that dynamism is gone. And so you do have to, certainly when you're starting off, if you're starting off by wanting to convert a figure, or if you're starting from scratch, you do have to have the pose go. It needs to be dynamic, and then I'm going to push it one further, because that otherwise you just won't see it. It will go. So I do think that is key. I think also you've got to think, James, how realistic do you want things to be? How are you bothered about? You were talking about color. So are you bothered about, are they wearing exactly the right shade of uniform that the people would be wearing on that ship or not? Because you can make things stand out more by using color, but it won't necessarily be you are going to get people coming along saying, "Oh, wouldn't have you worn that color? That's not right." But that doesn't matter, because to me, you're not presenting a realistic thing here. You're presenting a fixed moment in time, which is a bit of a story, and it's one act, if you like, or 3 levels of acts from the theatre stage. And in doing that, I think you can push things far further.
I think that's one of the really good things about this build for me, is that anyone that knows me and the way I build is that I don't do research normally. I very rarely do any sort of research, and whatever research I do, I will adapt some of that research into what I want, because it's an element, maybe like a paint scheme or something. But whether the tire on an aircraft on the ground is with a full load is quite right. I'm not really worried by that. But the other thing with this particular build is because I'm using an event in history to describe and explain a journey over a year for myself, I've then got a lot of ground in which I can then go, I don't really need to worry about that too much because it's not an historical moment. It's a reflection of a moment in every guise. So we're going to cover the emotions of myself, the trauma and all that sort of stuff. There's also going to be some physical elements to try and transpose that part of the story. But then obviously we've also then got my family, my wife, my loved ones, my work, my colleagues, the M4H family, and how they helped me through the last year, etc. How you guys helped me right now doing this and talking it through. The people that are watching and believe it or not, every single time I do this, I have at least 3 or 4 people message me and go, "Oh, I've just had a thought. Had you thought about doing this or that?" So the whole journey is a constant journey. It's not something that happened then. It's still evolving. So that gives me an element to not worry about the finer details, the uniform being exactly the right color, or the pip on the collar being the right whatever. I can get away with that a bit. And one of the things in which I'll very briefly show you, bear with me because my computer is struggling. So what I've done this week, and we'll reflect on this. I've been showing pictures, as you've seen, to try and illuminate some of the things of which the guys are talking about, and they've provided them pictures. But what I've done, which will be featured much more in the next round table. Hopefully that works. Right, there we go. So what I've done is, as you can see here, this is actually a storyboard. I've actually made a storyboard for each level of the build. And in that, as you can see, that with these really fancy drawings that I didn't do, AI did them for me, I've tried to find the expressions and that moments that I want to express. So if we look here in the top corner, this is an element 1. This is for the top deck. It's the signals and radios operator. They're describing panic. Oh, no, sorry, that's the wrong one I'm looking at. My apologies. 1 second. So, yeah, the top corner. So the commanders, the officers, they're struggling. And the emotions they're going to be showing is fear, shock, and the act that they need to work, do something right now. Demand of action. This journey that we've been describing, so that actually tells you the historical bit at that moment, but now the journey side of it is actually this part of this element on the top of the build is about my wife and my family being thrown into a sudden crisis, to be forced to make decisions, not knowing quite what to do, and all that sort of stuff. So I've made 6 elements on each level to describe certain things that happen by certain people, etc. And by doing the storyboard, in that one piece there's 3 people, but I don't need 3 people for that. I can use 2 figures for that, or I can use a single figure a couple of times around on the top level, which will give me all those elements. So yes, I've got a lot of freedom in the build to not get trapped in the detail.
Yeah. Robert, going back to you as well. So we were talking briefly about the difference between realism and expression, and which one is more important in this build. And I think it's quite clear that expression is more important here than it is realism. What things should James be looking out for when he's creating a pose or adjusting a figure to make a pose, so that he can convey those emotions?
Well, as I said, I think being totally in what expression you're trying to create, or what emotion you're trying to create, and then I think faces are key. I do think faces. If you can have the most dynamic figure, but if the face looks like he's just having a snooze or just staring forward, that isn't going to work at all. So having the adding to the face in some way, frowning, eyes perhaps slightly shut or eyes wide open. Those are key, and the angle, not having the way that the head. We tend to put heads on bodies too erect and upright. Well, none of your people are going to be wanting to look like that at all. They're all going to be slouching or dudging or moving. And so it's getting that head dynamic with what else is happening in the hands and the arms and the feet to make it work. You can push anatomy a little bit, but you do still have to have a thought about what's happening with anatomy as well, to try not to get it too far off. And I always found the reason I stopped doing converting was it's very difficult to keep hold of anatomy when you're converting things, particularly the more you want to convert it. Because if you're cutting something off or using an arm in a slightly different way and altering it, you can lose that length of forearm, length of upper arm, and it can start to go wonky by doing that. That's why I always found it easy just to have a hand and build your own arm up from it and do that. But that we may talk about later. But I think it is that it's the whole body language that is being given that's key. But because it's small and because they are going to be either in, as you said, James, on their own or groups of 2 or 3 figures within a huge thing, it does have to be, for your main players, it does have to be quite exaggerated, because actually otherwise you won't notice it at all.
I think that's it, isn't it? I think you are telling a realistic story. So I guess your realism is the emotion and the story that you're telling. That's what you've got to nail, for it to work. Yeah.
But as I say, it's not like it would be told on a TV film where, because you can get into it and close, you can focus in on those people in the TV film. It's got to be like on a stage where, because you have to exaggerate it to get the people looking at that bit and not just eyes flowing off to something else and something else. You want them to, and that's the other thing to think about, James, on your levels, and that you as a diorama person know this much better than me, is where do you want to take people's eyes? Where do you want them? How you want them to travel through each level to do that?
Mm-hmm. We go on. Sorry,
I was going to say, the connecting of different vignettes in it to sort of like not have a bunch of separate things. You kind of need to have them, if you can, linked as well somehow, be it one guy within joining the two together. And I was just as Robert was speaking there and talking about dynamic posing, it just got me back to thinking about the old Shep Payne adage. It's going to come up yet, might have to drink. But he, in his books, he's often talked about dynamic posing for figures and putting figures off balance. It doesn't have to be, going to extremes to convey the situation they're in. And I think that's going to be, part of what's going to, as Robert said, you go so far and then you go a little bit further just to convey that extra bit of story. So it's really, there's no doubt in the viewer's mind. This isn't going to be a piece for little subtleties, I think, in the end of the day. I think this is going to be strong storylines over big events.
I'm sorry. I'd agree. It's we discussed like the faces, but as Rob and Robert are saying, it's the pose. It's how they're moving. You can get away with stuff towards the rear, but when you're looking at it, it's and how he like how Rob was saying, how you want your eye to move. It's all about the pose. What they're doing. Because at that scale, quite honestly, Robert and Rob, you could tell me if I'm wrong. You're not really going to be looking at the face. You're going to, maybe one or two, but you're going to be looking how they're moving, what they're doing. That I think is what the story you want to tell, is how they're moving. What's happening to them in the moment. You know what I mean? That I think is key to it.
But that's also one of the reasons why I chose not to have the explosion on the diorama. Mm-hmm. Is because it's all about that moment when it explodes. So there's the force of pressure, and that hopefully will create the movement and will create the there will be a focal point, certainly on that first hangar level where, you know, what I decided was I was going to have a single figure on that side, pretty much the closest person to the explosion, and that's going to be super exaggerated because of the explosion, etc. So he's got to be well off balance. He's got to be all but standing on a toe, you know, because he's just got whacked. And then everybody else behind is getting that shock wave in different, experiencing that moment in different ways. So you'll have people that are slightly off balance, or people that might not be off balance at all, but their toolbox has just flown past them, and they're like, "Oh, what's that?" You know, because they're concentrating so much in the changing over of the torpedoes, the bombs, and all that sort of stuff. So that's why I chose to do it, and also it gets away from the cotton wool and all that sort of stuff that I didn't really want to do. So,
Gil, do you work on multiple figures like dioramas, or are you a single? A single. Yeah. So when we touched it on it earlier on, using a group of figures to convey something or part of the story, and then having the one central figure being the one that is the detailed one with the, you know, the expression. So the other two are backing the story up, if you like. Do you think there's a way that you can pose them or block the stage so that can happen more naturally, or is there? Do you think there's something that it's just going to have to come out of, like James's storyboard? You know, where all the three are placed. Do you think there's a way of blocking those people in, or where they're standing?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. First off, whatever is your main figure, that is going to be your focal point. That's going to be, you know, the centerpiece. Okay, the landscape and all that plays a big part. But say you have three of them, you know. Again, your focal point is going to be on that first one, the one that you want people to concentrate. This is the main character in the story. Yeah. So then you take, I don't know, say two of them, and you position them in a way, you know, you put them in a way that it doesn't interfere with the main one, but it complements everything, you know. So if you're sitting, for instance, like what James is saying, he's, you know, there's going to be maybe one or two that the thing happens directly in front of them. You know, the action is right in front of them. So it's like, oh my God. The other ones that are all in the back, you know, you position them to the point where one, maybe a guy's eating a sandwich. You know, what's going on here? And another guy, you know, he's got a wrench in his hand. You know, they're the landscape. They have the landscape of the picture that you're trying to convey. So there's a lot of little different things you can do in that landscape that doesn't take away from the focal point that you want people to zero in on, the shock of what just happened. You know, that's the focal point. The rest of them is just their bid play. As was mentioned earlier, it's a big kabuki theater. How do you position your actors? How do you put them? You know, like Rob showed that his with the guy with you know, he's looking up. Well, I didn't focus on his face when I was watching him. I focused on his body. His body told me everything I needed to know, you know. So that's how you position everything. It's, you want the ones that are expressive up in the front, and you want the others in the background just to complement what's happening in the front, you know. Okay. And you can tell different stories by doing that, you know. Yeah. Okay. That's how I would do it.
Cool. Rob, I know you've I know you've worked on multiple figure dioramas before. I'm just trying to think of the one that you did recently. It was in the Tamiya magazine. You had, yes. 5, I think, German soldiers. Was there a German soldier in that? And did you use the others to complement what you were trying to tell, or did every single one of them have a story?
That was certainly the original. You had a height element going on, so the guys kneeling at the front and then 3 guys at the back, some of which were just walking into the scene almost. So there was a couple of figures that needed a little bit more, and they were near, you know, they were, so you had a structural element to the way the figures were arranged, plus the background as well, or the landscape, the platform.
What's the term for that then? Is there an artistic consideration?
Probably, but I can't think what it is actually.
Right. I know when you're planting shrubs, you have to plant them in 5s or 3s. Is that something?
That might have been lucky, but also actually there's an element in that diorama which I don't have handy, or even a picture handy, but I included a hat box, so you had all the drabs and field greys of the German soldiers, but it was on the station platform, and there were suitcases on the platform, but there was a much more colourful hat box at the front. So your eyes would, in theory, look at that. Underneath that was actually a newspaper kind of giving you a tale of when in the war it was. But your eyes would be drawn to that to show kind of more of a humanity element to the war kind of thing, whereas everything else was drab. So. But I was also thinking, actually, when we're kind of describing these little vignettes and stories that will go on and how we want to see them, Robert will be aware of Mike Blank, and who very much, if you look at Mike Blank, very, very competent sculptor, diorama maker, he uses colour to accentuate 1 or 2 people in a vignette of 20 people. And the guys around that person might be in greys or really desaturated colours, and the main character will be, it could be Boudicca, it could be Louis the Sun King. I think there's another one he's done in that style. They're very much that's almost how I'd see these things going. You've got people who you don't need to pay too much attention to, and then one person who might be the person telling that bit of the story, who you can focus on.
Yeah.
And dig out and find some of Mike Blank's dioramas and vignettes, and you'll see what I mean as soon as you see them. I mean, he is exceptional in what he does, but it's quite stylized at times. But I think that's kind of the direction.
Is that Blank with a K at the end?
Yes, it is. Mikhail Blank.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. Frank was going to bring Mike Blank up. I think that when we were talking about painting and light, the way he uses that to focus on what he wants you to look at.
Yeah.
His Marshal Ney one is the one I can think of, where it's just surrounded. It's a diorama with a Napoleonic marshal on his horse, surrounded by other people on their horse. But what you straight look at is him, because of the way it's been painted and the way it's been done. A bit like Gil was saying, that some of these figures can be almost dark entirely, except for their face showing, or the side of their face. It's getting that focus. And Mike is very good at spotlighting on where he wants you to look and where the important stuff is, and that adds drama to it.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Just
before we go any further, let me just bring in these questions that are on the chat.
Yeah.
It's okay, it's not a problem. Dominic's asking about favourite paint, but we will cover that, Dominic, but I'm not going to do it right now. But I'll remember that and come back to it. Dave Shelley is saying, are you planning on sculpting the figures yourself? No is the answer. However, the reality is there's going to be quite a lot of sculpting in some form or another. The reason being is that unfortunately, as Rob alluded to earlier, Japanese body frames are much thinner, much more petite than the Western frame. And this is drawn out very, very well in a couple of figures that I just happen to have here. He says. So, let's operating the camera as well. So I make myself, it's all about me anyway, so it doesn't matter. No, there's a camera. So as you can see, I mean, it's just the way I'm holding them, unfortunately, not going to help too much. But you can see there that the figure that's closest to the camera is a Western figure. Looks like they're walking away. And the other one is a Japanese figure. Yeah. So they're massively different.
Bulkier.
Yeah. So and the one I got here is from an ICM kit, and it's a Japanese soldier, basically. Let me just try to. There we go. and the reason I picked this particular kit was because it's a man that's been shot. They're doing a charge, and he's been shot, and he's being thrust back by an explosion or whatever. And it gave me the opportunity to try and figure out how I was going to express that figure we talked about earlier about one being nearest explosion. But the Japanese figures have come from a company called Triumph Models, and Ealing and his team have got some great figures. I've got 44 figures, and they're all in slightly different pose, and they range from pilots to Commodores and all sorts. But the reality is I'm going to have to cut them and manipulate them in some form or another. Or, as Robert said, is if I take an arm off, I might actually have to only use the hand and do the rest as a sculpt. So that's going to be pretty exciting because I've not done any of that before. But I don't think I've got any choice in the matter. Unfortunately, I don't have thousands of pounds to ask a whole load of sculptors to do the figures for me. I'd love to be able to, but this is not going to happen. So yes is the answer. There is going to be an element of that, of which I hope when we got past halfway through the roundtables, we'll be into a position where we'll start doing builds and stuff. So we will focus on all the different elements of that build within videos. So we will do quite a lot of figure work, I'm sure. And I haven't asked them yet, and now's not really a good time to ask them, but I'm sure I'll be pestering our three guests here quite a lot for some more information and maybe even some tutorials at some point. But yeah, so that answers that question. That is the questions for the moment in the chat. Keep them coming, put a queue by them so we can see them, and I will come back, Dominic, near the end about paints.
Yeah, one of the things I'm just looking up is I'm sure I've read somewhere about the direction that people are looking in a diorama. So if they're all looking in the same direction, then you are you have a sense of urgency because there's something that is off screen that you're or off diorama that everybody's looking at, or if they're all looking at each other, or if somebody's looking off a diorama, then on their own, then that conveys something as well.
Yeah.
I was definitely I was trying to find it.
May I?
Yeah.
The one thing that I have always found that intrigues me and it draws me in is when someone does a really good diorama and one of the figures is looking directly at you. You know, because that always draws my eye to that one person. It's like, boom, and then everything else tells the story. It's more, what do they call that? In when they do movies and they turn around, they talk directly to the camera.
Yeah. Oh, breaking the fourth wall.
The fourth wall.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So whenever I go to like shows or people show me their stuff and I see stuff online, it's always the one that's looking right at you. You know, everything else is happening. I can't remember where I saw. It was a Napoleonic diorama, and everything. It was real busy, beautiful. But there was one figure that was looking directly at you, you know, away from whatever else was going on. You know, everybody else is focused on this, and one is just looking right at you.
Yeah, and I guess that draws you in, doesn't it? Because you've got that
it pulls you in because you're like, what does he know that I don't know? You know, so it pulls you right in. You know, yeah. That's what I like to see and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that idea.
That's a good idea.
Take note of that one.
I have.
We were talking about poses, Robert. We were talking about strong poses, and you were saying that we'd get those poses down and get them correctly so that people can read them. Yeah. Have you ever done something where you've scrapped completely any kind of realism or any historical accuracy, just so that you can convey an emotion or an act, more almost like surreal? Is that something that you've ever done?
I'm not quite. I'm actually working on a piece currently that is going that way, right. which will be out next year. A one-off piece for me, which I'll get out next year for people to see. But I think that I must admit, and the more, although I do tend to work largely in the historical sphere, accuracy sort of on. I don't let accuracy get in the way of what I want to try and do, because quite often, if you're looking at a person in uniform, particularly if you go back to the Napoleonic period, a bit before, a bit after, their movement was somewhat limited anyway with what they were actually able to do with the equipment. But I've never stopped that from actually making the pose or making the thing I wanted to try and convey. And occasionally I've had people say, well, they wouldn't have been able to do that. And I said, well, no, maybe they wouldn't, but that I don't really care. So that, I think that, you do sometimes stretch it, but I've never stretched it really. If I'd like to, it's something I really want to try and do more of, is taking things, really far away from the actual and taking it into something else, so that you've really got to think about what it is that's being done. I think that there are several artists out there in the UK, a guy called Fet Milner. He does some wonderful work that you really have to think about what he's doing. And often he doesn't want to tell you. You've got to decide yourself. That's why he's doing it. Is that you need to look at it and decide. He doesn't want to put the big bit of information down the side. Well, this is what I had in my mind while I was doing this. He wants you to make up your own mind about that piece of work.
Well, I guess there's the strength of the title, isn't it, in that piece of work?
Yeah. And I think that and I at the very beginning when you were saying about artism, I struggle with the word artist and our hobby. But I do think there are people who are very artistic, and there are people who are very skilled at the work they do. But I don't particularly regard what I do as artistic. And I'm not going to get in that conversation because there's a huge rabbit hole that we can all dive down. I'm sure none of us want to. But I think that type of work that Fet does, it to me is taking it, that his stuff could go in a gallery, and people would look at it and think that. I think it's a shame that people from the art gallery world would poo-poo and look at our stuff and say, "Oh, that's just painting toys" or things like that. Which, of course, it's not at all either. But his stuff does certainly push the limits, and there are several other people. Rob will know others as well that do that at the moment, and some of the work is superb. Not just making fantastic creatures, because in a way that's just reproducing the human form in a different way, but actually pushing the whole realm of what possibly could happen. And I think this, it can be. I'm not saying that would work for what James is going to do, but I think that's that. Yeah, the one thing I was going to say, James, and it going back to the lighting, is that as you've said, you wanted to convey the effects of the explosion through paint, which I admire you wanting to do that. That will impact the figures as well, because they will have to react accordingly. Not exactly, but there's no point having a big sort of light, painted light aircraft or whatever behind, and then the figures in front have got no relation to that whatsoever, because that would look odd. So you would have to try that would. And the other thing I was thinking with that, and I've gone off tack here, Malcolm, I'm sorry, is if you said about using real light as well, and I think you have to be careful that your real light doesn't detract from the effect of your painted light, because you could find that you actually put a light on something and actually it lights up in totally the opposite way than the effect you wanted to create.
Yeah. You'll take away from the effect that you're trying to do.
I think I mean we spoke about this in a previous roundtable, and if I'm honest, I want to try and avoid using lights at all, but I'm aware that I'm going to have to put something in that creates an ambient source of light at some point.
But it could be subtle.
That's what I'm going to have to do. I've got to find that balance of stark and subtle, and a shadow in between, certainly on that middle deck. On the lower deck, where there isn't that fierce light, then we're all talking about potentially electronics to give some form of light, subtle light. But if I really enjoy the middle bit, it's quite possible I could recreate the subtle light effect underneath as well without the electronics. But I don't know. I don't know how. It might just drive me completely insane. I don't know.
Normal.
Yeah, more than normal. So, you know, and also like I've said, is the one time I've done, or the couple of times I've done lighting in a diorama here on my bench, awesome. Take a picture of it, awesome. Oh, crack this. Take it to a venue where it's a completely different type of light source and environment, nothing. Gone. Everything's gone completely. It's just like, oh, what happened? How did that happen? And that's what I want to avoid.
So I think that's what Robert's saying, is that, you know, if you paint it, you've got more control and definitive control over it. I think
that's what I'm hoping.
I think we discussed in a previous one, didn't we, about having angled lights, you know, the lights hanging down being angleable for showing the shock wave and things like that. And then you can use that as well.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing in which certainly on that middle deck, this is the one thing in which I really want to make sure happens, is that obviously you would have had lighting lamps hanging from the ceiling, and the force of the explosion would have them all at a very strange angle. So you've got a subtle light bulb or LED in there, potentially in some of them, but not all of them. I want to make sure I'm not going to do all of them, because what I want to try and do is make the ones at the back, the ones that the LEDs, and the ones at the front, they're all going to be painted. The bulbs have got to be painted, because then I can control what light that gives me.
Yeah, you also I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
No, go on, please.
You also got to remember that depending on how deep you're going to make this, your darkers is going to be in the back, and you want as you come up forward, that's where your lighting source is going to be. So towards the rear of that, you can get real subtle with that, with the colors in there.
Yeah,
it's that's the wallpaper. You know, it's the wallpaper of the thing. So you're not looking really at the wallpaper. I mean, it's there. I mean, I'm not saying not that, you know, you want to add some little details or whatever there, but your focal point as you're coming up is your light, you know, and what you want people to focus in on. So everything in the back, like you said, a small little light here, you know, a little this and that there, you know, you do your painting, but you're not really lighting that up in the back. You're lighting it up in the front of it, you know, right around where the action is, and then it radiates out, you know. So your shadows and all that will play a big part of that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things we haven't really talked about is shadows, very much, and their role in what James is trying to do. So I know that, you know, strong shadows in. We were talking about theatre before as well. Well, let's see other. There's links all the way through. Let's see, and we were talking about lighting as well with theatre, but with shadows, I guess. Robert, I think I asked you already, didn't I, about sculpting and shadows, and so Rob, when you're painting and are you painting shadows on to create emotion or movement or depth? What is it that
the question that or the comment about painting under our lights? We paint under our lovely lights and they look lovely, and then you take them to a show and the lights there are awful. One or two shows are cottoning onto this and they're getting good at providing a similar light to what you would paint at home. So it really does give honors the painting you did when you were doing it. But I think I've said this in some of our paint along with Rob sessions, is that why we give these models depth. We paint the shadows, highlights, whatever it might be, a source of light. You often starting basic principles are a light source from above, but you might end up putting that from a different direction. You might have two light sources, or three, which I'll come on to in a minute. But we do that because you could look at it in another lighting condition and you still want that form and shape to be visible to the viewer. And hopefully if you get that right, you could take a miniature and put it into almost any lighting condition and you can see that it's been painted and you're not relying on the light source in which it's being displayed. You have created, and you can use that again to then, I guess, certainly control the way a viewer looks at it.
Exactly.
In terms of the light source, and like I say, obvious overhead light is sunshine, middle of the day, blah blah blah. And then you can do sunsets and sunrises and different shades and colors in the highlights and the shadows.
Yeah.
And talking about this project, and I'm kind of thinking that, yeah, LEDs or whatever it might be to help. These are going to have, a lot of the time I'm almost envisaging these as being a bright light from the explosion and then a lot of shadow, but in reality it's going to be a bright light and then other light sources illuminating each figure, so you can get, even the shadow bits might have a bit of light, but that could be you could have a very orange light from the explosion, and then I don't know what color lights they would be underneath, whether there'd be a red light in an emergency situation, like in a submarine thing, and so you've got a red illumination, or whether it's you could use a bluer light to do the a highlight color to define these different light sources, and where your vignette will be in your diorama will dictate where you're going to put these highlights. So everyone will be painted slightly differently, and you'd have to consider that mark where these different bits and bobs go. But yeah, we want to, you'd want to use we do shadows, and a good sculptor will provide the painter with a nice canvas with the right amount of shadows or a right amount of creases and things to allow the brush to and the colors you use, that you're accentuating the sculpting, as opposed to trying to put things in that aren't there. Okay. So the sculptor will hopefully put the right things in, and the painter will then almost draw attention to, if there's a nice bit of sculpting, for example, a painter might want to, on a single figures as opposed to dioramas, you might choose to really detail paint one bit the sculptor's done really well that you want to highlight because it's a really nice, you want to draw attention to that bit of sculpting, be it a bit of face, be it a bit of lace work on a Napoleonic hussar's jacket or something like that.
Okay. What about you, Gil? Is it something that you would consider working with the shadows?
Oh, all the time. I do it all the time. We're talking about what we do on our desk. Like here, I've got 6 heavy lights that I work under, because I like to see through the paint when I'm painting, if that makes any sense. I want to see through it, So when I'm layering, I want to see through the paint, if that makes any sense again. But I also add a lot of shadow, So when, for instance, if I'm doing a third scale or quarter scale bust, a big bust, yes, I have lighting sources that I'm looking at, and I'm moving it around, seeing, okay, where do I want the light to come from? When you're looking at something this big, you're looking at it head on, because people tend to put it on a mantle or whatever. So you're looking at it head on. So natural lighting, if you use color, will give you your shadows, because if you're looking at it, they usually have a light overhead, and the natural sculpt will give it. You can accept, like here, the Geiger, you see the shadow work in there. There's, I use a lot of Payne's gray. I use a lot of purples. I use a lot of greens, yellows, reds, a rust color, just to accentuate the shadows. And you're looking directly at them. And that's not a touched up photo. That's just something I put up, you take your iPhone and you put, there's a setting, a stage setting that you can eliminate all the background and just accentuate the piece. That's how you're going to see it, And like what you guys mentioned earlier, if you take that to a show and they got the poor lighting on there, the poor, the fluorescent lighting or whatever they got, you're not going to see all the intricacies in that color, because you're not going to see what you're seeing on your desk, But when they take it home and they put it down, now you see everything, because now you got natural lighting. You don't have that artificial, I call it that artificial dead American light, because it's just terrible lighting. When you go to these shows, it's terrible lighting there, and if you got terrible lighting, you know you're going to take this to a show, you want to accentuate a few things here and there, like the shadows on her, that's sitting on my desk under. I turned off all the big lights and I just got the overhead light on, because that's what I'll do. I'll lower everything and step back a minute. Okay, I need to accentuate this over here. I need to accentuate this over here with lower lighting. Then I put my bright painting lights on and do what I got to do. But always, you got to figure out with color, especially if you're taking something to a show, because you know how they are at the shows.
Yeah.
If it doesn't catch your eye, they're going to keep moving.
I think that's one of the things that James has to consider is the possibility of poor lighting, because that's where you want this thing to be seen and photographed and looked at, and it's not going to end up on a mantelpiece. There's no mantelpiece in the world big enough, but it's not going to end up there as it's where people are going to see it. It's going to be on a table at a show, possibly poor lighting, possibly under a basketball hoop or something. So there's something.
Yeah, so those you're right. Those are the things you want to consider. The lighting of where you're going to show this at. So you need to consider that. And that's where you work in your shadows, your bright colors, your this, your that, because you have to keep that in mind. If this is not going on, you want to show this to people. You want to take this out and show it to people. So that's how you play with your colors, when you're doing it that way.
Yeah. Rob.
Hello.
We talked about small faces and putting emotion on there. We talked about the eyebrows and things like that, and the eyes and conveying emotion. You work in 35th quite often, the same sort of scale that James is going to work in. So putting tiny details on is going to be important. But what sort of thing could you use in that smaller scale to push the emotion other than eyebrows and things like that? Is there any other tips that you could?
That's a tricky one. I think it would have to be actually in the posing of the figure, to be honest with you. I can't think of any other way you could do it regarding paint in itself, other than conveying, like I said earlier, fear or the draining of colour.
Yeah.
But again, with it, we're going to be doing that with if you've got a strong light source from the explosion, which is creating maybe a very orange glow from it, how do you do that drained colour? It's but I don't think it's impossible, because there's going to be zones on a face, depending where it is, where it's not. Some bits of the face aren't going to be in this direct light.
Yeah.
Some bits you're going to have a transition through to a shadow, which isn't necessarily super dark shadow, and so you're going to have areas where you could maybe show that. It's not going to be that won't be easy, but I mean, again, I think in the way this is going to be done, I think there's going to be an element of stylization in how you do this. I don't think these aren't going to be. I don't think anyone can convey a lot of those things easily. Somebody could probably do it on a single bust or something just to illustrate it, but to do it on multiple figures and multiple directions and multiple angles of multiple vignettes, so it might have to be made simpler to do that. So it's possible, but not easy.
And that'll save your nerves a lot there, James. I mean, well, I mean, because he's right. I mean, absolutely. There's not much at that scale. There's not much you can do with color. I mean, it's important, but there's really not much you can do with it to convey something, especially in the face at that scale. Yeah. It's like Robert was saying, it's the pose that matters. Yeah. It's the pose. You don't want it too cartoonish, because then it looks silly. If it's too, everything's all quick, it just looks silly. You want a natural, and the pose can you can have fear in the pose, confusion in the pose, all that, So yeah, I agree everything what Rob was saying there. It's just don't beat yourself up for trying to do the face perfect at that scale.
Oh no.
Yeah, because you're That's going to be and again, you're going to have that glow, that glow. So depending on which way they're aiming, that glow is going to hit and take up half of what you're doing. So.
Yeah, certainly with that one figure, the nearest one to the explosion, in my head, the way I envisage it is the part of the body that's closest to explosion is pretty much wiped out. It's just stark because of the brightness,
right?
And it's the transition. In my head, I'm painting a figure that's much bigger than what it will in reality will be, but in my head I'm thinking the transition from almost white through the colors of the explosion into what that person is actually wearing, his face, etc. It's going to be very minute adjustments over a very small period of space to blend all of that in. I don't know, if I'm honest, I don't know if I can achieve it. But
do you guys ever, I'm sure you guys wargame. The Games Workshop, the book Horse Rising, the cover.
Yeah.
Look at the cover of that book, and you see everything happening in the background. There's one figure. When you first look at that book, there's one person, one entity in that draws your eye in, and that's the guy looking directly away, and he's looking up, and he's got that expression of anger and excitement, and then everything else falls into place. Everything else. So that would be something. You look at that cover, and you're like, the first thing you notice is that one Space Marine, and then you notice everything else behind it. So that
Go on. Sorry,
James. I listening to the previous roundtables. Am I right in thinking that you're going to have more than one viewpoint for this? Because I think you are setting yourself lots of difficulties by that.
Yes.
Because of if you're using paint effect for light, it'll look right from the golden view, but actually when you then look at it, move it round, it won't necessarily look the same because you're not. And I think that's something I if you want it open, but that's the sort of the box diorama thing is that it focuses on absolutely you've got one view, that's it, and you can work hard to get everything you want with that. But I'm not saying that makes it easy; it sets its own difficulties up. But that you are dictating where the person's looking. If it's open, I personally would still think I'd go for that golden view, the one view that's the best for the whole thing. And then if you're doing the other bits, then okay, the other bits are there. But some things won't look quite right because you're looking at it from a different angle. I don't think it's possible to create those light effects in multiple viewpoints.
Not in multiple ones.
Maybe you can, but I don't know.
It'll be a little bit difficult, and it'll make it busy. It'll make it too busy is what it'll do. Now, you're saying the golden rule. You want to focus in. I would focus in on one. If I'm sitting it on a table and people are coming and they're looking at it, I want you to focus in on what I'm showing you. You can focus your figures a little bit here and there to where they're telling they're looking off this way or looking off that way. But it all depends on where you want someone to see, where you want the viewer's eyes to go first. Like Robin is saying, you want the one focal point. Everything else is okay, but if you're setting yourself up for something very difficult if you're trying to make multiple viewpoints, people to focus on because then it becomes too busy. And you guys know this, man. People when they see something, it kind of overwhelms them,
Yeah.
So you want something that'll hit them, and then everything else. Oh, look at this, but your focus point is what you want them to look at, and then everything.
Have you thought about that, James? Have you thought about making it into some sort of box diorama or having a plaque or something that dictates where you would stand or something?
Yeah. So yes is the answer. I have thought about it. Initially, my thought process was to have the explosion on the left-hand side, and then the story working through the piece to the right-hand side. but Robert's absolutely right that one of the strongest pieces of dioramas in which I've ever seen is where you have that initial connection, a focal point connection, and then you notice other things around it. That's always worked very, very well for me. What I'm trying to explore is very complicated, and I think Robert's right. I've either got to at some point embrace the fact that I'm not going to achieve everything I want to, which is more than likely, or at the moment where I'm standing is, sorry, would you believe it? My headphones have run out of power. Unusual, right? So initially you'd have to figure on the right hand side, right on the edge, and now I'm thinking a lot more along the lines of, well, actually still on the left hand side, but much more nearer the front corner. So you've actually got a diagonal across the piece of where the explosion or light is going. Yeah. The reason for that is, as it stands at the moment, it's open three-sided. 3 sides of it are open. Now the back's obviously going to give me the ability to create that backdrop, the shadow, etc., and that's great. But I'm not going to get thinking of shadow-wise. If I've got shadow going back towards a backdrop, that might be easier to control. Whereas the original idea is we've been going literally from left to right with nothing at the back of it to support it, if that makes sense. So that's something in which I have considered, but I'm still not quite sure how I'm going to pull it off.
Tricky. It could be. It could box diorama. You could put. You could box diorama. You could put some sides on the side so people cannot see that side. They have to look through a direction that you've just stipulated.
You force the viewer to look at what you want them to look at. Is basically
which is you're going to do by pinpointing particular people anyway. But it might be an idea to do something like that. Or and you said you're going to look at it through, so you could angle the entire thing. So that the person, if they're standing looking directly at the table, it is at an angle already for that person to look in the direction.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing in which I was considering yesterday with Bill Huffman, obviously I've done these storyboards, and it suddenly occurred to me that actually what I could do, I've got 3 storyboards, I've got 3 sides that are open. I could preempt it by putting the storyboards on the base to allow people to spot the elements, if you like.
Yeah.
And then on the 4th side, that's where the history is, because it's mainly the bulkhead of the aircraft carrier and the island, which is what you see from that one side. That's where you would concentrate the midway action historical element to it. So you've basically got a walk around the whole piece, telling you what you should be looking for, where your eye line should be, etc. A guide, if you like. My only concern with that it might end up being a little bit too complicated. Some people will understand that, some won't, and that's the difficulty really of making it translatable.
Keep it simple, I think. Keep it super simple, and of course you also have to put in your own story too, which is the whole point of doing it. So your own story has to come through strongly too. And I wondered if you thought about, in this context where we're talking about light and expression and pose and color and shadow, how you are going to put yourself into all these different poses.
Yes, I have, and that's part of the reason I enjoyed doing the storyboards, was that it's not something I've ever done before, and something in which I initially, when I started doing the storyboards, hadn't really factored in the wife, for example. It was about me. It was about the journey that I've gone through, reflecting also with the help that I've had, obviously, but not focusing on the help per se. And then when I started doing the storyboards, again, as I've been very open about it, I've used AI to have a conversation with, because I've got no friends. And it seems like a sensible way of doing it. And AI actually pointed out to me that had I thought about the family, etc. And it was literally a couple of words in a sentence that made me go, oh, actually, that's really interesting. Yeah, let's explore that. Literally was what I wrote. Let's explore that. How can we make the top deck, which seemed to be the right place to do it, because that's where the most light will be. How can we highlight how it affected my wife, how it affected my family, my friends, etc. And all of a sudden, I've got 6 elements within that storyboard that are not about me. They're not about me at all. They're all about my wife. They're all about family. Well, they're mostly about the wife, actually, but there's a couple in there about family as well and all that sort of stuff. And the poses in which I've generated in those stories for that are related to them. So that's pretty cool. I quite like that idea. The middle section is where the explosion is per se, so that's all about me. And the lower section, the bit I discovered that I hadn't anticipated was there's another element to this whole journey that I've not really even thought about, and that's work, life. It all goes on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, whatever you're going through, life around you still continues.
Yeah.
So that's allowed me to find 6 elements to show that in the lower deck. So there's actually 3 stories within the story of the 2 stories. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So it's multifaceted.
James, when you were saying about the 3 levels, and you're reading the stuff, I totally understand how the bottom level is sort of now. Is that right, or now moving on?
Sort of. So the bottom level will be the second hangar deck, which wasn't penetrated by the explosion.
Yeah.
So they're basically carrying on as normal. They're getting everything ready for the next wave of attacks that they want to do. Yeah. They're swapping bombs out to torpedoes. So it's all about life carrying on. Yeah. Now that reflects to now, to then, and before. So there's sort of that journey through it, and it's just a constant consistency, if you like. That's the one consistency that you can guarantee when this situation happens is everything around you carries on. Yeah, nothing stands still and goes, oh, wait for him. No, sure. It just all carries on.
Yeah. Do you want something in that bottom thing though, that because at the moment it's sort of the darkest, isn't it? Do you want something that's a tiny element, if you like, almost like a door at the back, that's light, as in there's positivity in this at the end, because otherwise it might be a bit gloomy.
Yeah, you've actually hit the nail 100% on the head, and that's exactly what I planned to do. Was that I planned to put, so the way the build is, if you've got the if we forget the top deck for a minute, we've got the 2 hangar decks, but the back of the hangar decks is a bulkhead wall. But behind the bulkhead wall is the compartments that there would have been between that and the outside of the ship. So that allows me to have literally an open door with a light source, shining something to get to. And what is sort of in my head decided was that I was going to, because the sides are open, you could look into the compartments. But on that lower deck on the right hand side, it would be closed. You wouldn't be able to see all the way through, which you would on the decks above or deck above. And the reason for that was it would allow me to have literally a light. You go around the journey and you go, we're going to look for the light at the door to exit this scenario or move forward or whatever your mind takes you. But the light at the end of the tunnel, for want of a better phrase, was literally what I thought while I was doing it. It was like, I need a light at the end of the tunnel. The other thing
use actual light or just a hole so that it shines the light from behind.
It will be a doorway, but as you go through the doorway, it will be a little box compartment which will have a light in it, which will create that light at the end of the tunnel sort of scenario, if you like. I also thought what I might do is I might stand a figure in the doorway, so the light creates the shadow on the back of the figure, which you can help illuminate that a little bit. But it also symbolizes the fact that you're moving forward on the journey into the future, if you like. So I thought about that. The other thing in which I've just very recently thought about within the storyboard is that at the moment, obviously, I'm a year plus past the incident. I've had the operation. My heart health is absolutely amazing. I'm 21 again in my heart, but unfortunately, my head is not like that, and my mental health is struggled and find it difficult. So I'd like to reflect that as well in that lower level somewhere, somehow. If you like, a little bit like what do they call it? An Easter egg. Something that if you see it, you see it. If you don't, you don't. But I just want to put something in there to show the effect all of the above has had, and then moving forward.
And maybe that'll you'll think of something that's poignant as you build in it. Perhaps I think, James, that the fact that this will exist is an Easter egg in itself. In the fact that you've progressed and got better, and the fact that it's there is going to be quite a strong thing. Rob, if you were crazy enough to have this idea and you were building this, what tip would you give James? what would you say to look out for, or what's something that you would encourage James to do?
Good question. When it comes to the painting, I was just thinking about, I hadn't realised that I've forgotten about the Hanger Deck 2 being without the strong light source. So you're going to have the bridge level being outside with natural light illuminating figures and things. But I guess there's going to be a bit of light from the explosion at that level as well, because it's going to come, because it's gone through, hasn't it? But it's not going to be dominating, because you've got a whole sunshine of the Pacific out there. And then you're going to have a deck that's going to be bathed in orange or brighter light from one side, and then other subtle lights elsewhere. And then you're going to have the darken. Is it three? Is it there's those three levels? Is that correct? 3 levels, yeah. So the bottom one's going to, so the bottom deck's going to be darker. Oh, you go, yeah. So, choosing I had the idea of a door that's open, and what colour to have in there, because it could be so dark down there in the model as a physical part of the model itself, just being so it being so deep in it, it's going to be dark, and you couldn't use object source lighting to do that because it's going to be too dark. So you're going to use paint to accentuate that effect, but you will have to do some form of illumination. But going back to the very first question about colour doing emotion and whatnot, that colour you choose for that door opening out to hope needs to be a colour that isn't cold or terrifying. It needs to be a warm and hopeful,
and welcoming.
Yes. It needs to convey that very element of hope in the future and all that kind of stuff. So
perhaps not have any other colour on the entire diorama, and only have like a bright yellow or something down there.
Yeah, maybe it's on certainly. Well, again, that raises the question as to how the lights illuminating those decks were. We always see navies and it's an emergency, turn on the red lights and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was used by the Japanese during that. So your illumination down there will be dictated. If it was red, for example, or something like that, then that bright door could be quite, because it would be a dark red for that level overall. It could be quite gloomy because they're carrying on, ignorant of everything that's coming. But there's one place where the hope is in that door, kind of thing. So that colour you choose for that could be quite strong and powerful. And draw the eye immediately, because it's like, oh, hello, what's that?
Exactly.
What about you, Gil? Do you got any tips for James or warnings?
I'm sitting here, I saw the picture again, and like you guys were mentioning, the bottom deck is going to be the darkest. And now that I'm hearing more from you, James, of what this is going to convey, that doorway is going to be hope. There's hope there, you know. So you don't want any muted colors there. You want something that conveys that, a bright light, you know, something in there that says, hey, look, there's still hope there, you know, through that doorway. You move up, you know, you go to your second level, you know. Oh, you were also talking about how do you convey at the bottom level the mental anguish, the problem with the mental health. You have a figure with his hands, facing his hands down there, or, you know, something like that near the door.
Yeah.
You know, and then you got your figure at the door with his back turned towards you, walking out the door, and you have another one, you know. So,
see, you could also, to just spitballing, you could also have a figure in the doorway with his hand out to the figure with his head in his hands.
Exactly. Saying, hey, look, come
it
with
could
me.
Be as simple as that.
You know, there's hope here. You know, we can help each other. You know, come on. You know, there's hope here. You move up. You know, like they were like Rob was saying at the top. That's your main. That's going to be lit by outside forces, of course, with your colors and stuff. Your main. So what you're doing up there is what I would imagine at the top is where the action, where it conveys your stories at the very top, right?
So the very top's actually going to be more about my wife and the family. It's about their story. So it's about the sudden impact, the making decisions like really, really quickly and not really knowing what to do, confusion, all those sort of things. One of the elements in which I've got on the storyboard is a nod to the title of the piece, but also a bit historical and all that sort of stuff. And one of the things, obviously, the name of the piece is Fire on the Rising Sun. So what I decided was I wanted some action of some description on the flight deck near the. It will have some posts where some flags are and stuff, where the signal pads flags would be and all that sort of stuff. And my initial thought was I'd have someone on the flight deck that's sort of hovering above the flight deck where the explosions, they fell on the floor because they saw the plane and they were sort of hiding very badly on the flight deck, but the explosions lifted them up off the flight deck. That was my original thought process. However, now I'm thinking actually what I can do is I will have flags, and one of them will be the flag of Japan, which is the rising sun, obviously. So what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to have that. So it's had some shrapnel or something come through the flag, and the flag is burning. And then that way I don't have to worry about any of the light source of the explosion. It's already explained in that one little element of that flag.
So what I'm getting at, the top level is confusion.
Mainly.
The second level would be chaos. Yeah. And the third level is life goes on. You know, right? Yeah. Is that what? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Man, you got your work cut out for you on that one, man. You really do. I mean, it's going to be great when you get it done. You know, just, you know, you're talking about the light source at the bottom. I would put like the chaos. You want that light source to convey that, you know. So even I don't know if you know, like they were saying, a little red light in the back, maybe something that, you know, that shows, you know, that the emotion of it, you know, the emotion of it, which is your reds, you know, your angry colors, you know, that would be your oranges. That's your emotion down at, like you said, at the bottom, a nice cooling at the doorway, a nice, you know, something that you know, it's cooling. It's still there. Confusion, chaos, and then everyday life, you know, just tranquility, you know, more or less.
Yeah.
How you go about that is going to be tricky, but it can be done. You know, it can be done, you know.
What were you going to say, Rob?
I was just going to say, in terms of, and thinking about this as in the question of what kind of tip, or could I give a tip? It's kind of in terms of painting this, I think it goes in, you know, parallel to what Robert was saying earlier about pushing the posing, dynamic posing. for this and the subject and what you're doing, don't be afraid to push the color that one stage further than you might
Exactly.
think. You go that little bit more, and indeed, it might be interesting to mock up a little vignette on its own, and then it doesn't have to be perfect in any shape. It could be stickmen, whatever, and then prime it, spray it with bright colors or whatever from one direction, just to get a feel how it might look to the eyes and whatever before you commit to any of the figures you actually do as well. But don't be scared of going that one color brighter than you thought, because it's not necessarily, it's not conveying a true act of historical reality in the moment. It's got a lot of other layers to it, so go that little bit further. Don't be afraid.
It's
probably a good.
I think my tip's quite simple, and again, it's because I'm always going to be figure centric about this. But you're not building not building a Japanese ship with figures in it. You're building figures. You're building the figures are the key. The ship's the backdrop, and so not to get too bogged down with that part of it. It's got to look like what it is, but not the figures are telling you want to tell the story, and the figures are telling the story.
Exactly. Yeah.
The ship's telling the story overall, but the individual bits in the ship are a backdrop, and so not to get too time consumed with the backdrop.
Exactly. Yeah.
The figures are going to tell that story for you. The lighting of them and the way you paint the backdrop will aid that story. Yeah. But it's the figures that are telling the story in this case. Yes. Other people would do it as this is a diorama of a ship, and there are figures in it. But that's not what you're doing. I agree with Robert there. It's the figures and the colors you choose. Telling your story. Not the story of what a war story and boom, boom, boom and all. It's telling your story.
Yeah, so absolutely.
The colors and the way the figures you choose and the colors you choose have to tell your story. So when you explain it to people, if they're looking at, this is my story.
Yeah,
I'm telling a story.
And that's the thing with certainly with the. Like I said, I've chosen to maybe have 6 elements in each level. They're the ones we spoke about this earlier with Mike. Thank you, Mike Blank. In the fact that he was accentuating one particular figure within a piece, and that's sort of what I think I need to do on this. Is that the elements I need to sort of make them stand out a little bit, and that will help the journey around the decks, around the bits and pieces as well, if there's that element to it. It's not something I've necessarily done before. I've certainly done the looking at you idea and all that sort of thing, but so it's pretty exciting that we and talking about the let's say 6 vignettes within that layer. That's sort of the way I sort of see how I'm going to do it. Is I'm going to get those figures, I'm going to paint it individually, and then go, right, okay, how can I fit that into the scene? What do I need to do to the backdrop, to the scene, to make that figure work? As long as I can, for example, with the middle deck, if I'm doing highlight painting of the explosion, etc., if I can do those 6 elements on a separate piece of foam and put them next to each other and go, okay, I can sort of see how that's going to work. That'd be right. I can then slot them into the scene and then make the scene work with it. Because I really want the scene to be not drab, but I don't want it to draw anything away from what the people are looking at, because that's
why you're not putting the explosion in it, isn't it? That's why.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Dave Skelly's got a good suggestion. Do you want to read that one out, James?
Go on, him.
I was wondering if the door, he says, could have a sign over it with the word lifeboats, with the word boats torn away, leaving the character for life left. You could use kanji, hiragana, or katana characters. That's if you speak those languages, of course. But I like that idea. Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
This way for lifeboats. Clever. Yeah. With the least egg.
Yeah, definitely. They're the sort of things in which I need to look for.
Yeah. Do you want to write it down for
you? Yeah, go on then.
Go on.
John's there, and he said, "Could the bright red disc through a door, a rising sun, be the symbol of hope for a Japanese sailor?" Yeah, it could be. It could be. And this is when I mentioned a minute ago about the Japanese flag being battle worn. One of the things that drew me to that idea, the idea of having a flag in flames is a very scary one, because that's almost impossible to pull off in my head. But the one thing that I drew from that was that the emotions of that would be loyalty to the flag, maybe having a figure trying to pull the flag down to put the flames out, or something along those lines, and the pride of we all have a national flag, and we're all very proud of our national flag, and if it gets damaged anyway, we would be devastated. So that seemed really symbolic to me, and quite useful for the story of the family, the wife, and all that sort of thing. And yeah, you're right. Within that dark space, there needs to be an element of loyalty, of savior, if you like, of a future. So,
or maybe just a very nice, neat, clean, well illuminated flag near the door, or painted on the door or something,
Yeah, probably painted on the bulkhead or the door. I think would probably be the best way to do it. Maybe. It is possible, I suppose, that compartment could be leading on to where the pilots would have come from, like a briefing room or something, which then you could put your flag on the far wall, so you'd have to look through the door to see it, but it's there. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely lots of elements and things that you could add in there.
Brilliant. So James, I think we should start to wrap up.
Yes. One thing I wanted to do very quickly, though, and this is Rob's fault, we've spoken about sculpting, and I want to ask these guys about the sculpting element of it, just for 5 minutes or so.
Sure.
But Rob, come up with these pictures, bless him. If you're scared about sculpting, how about this? So this is sculpting. Using your sprue, your leftover sprue.
Ooh, look at that.
No, that's good.
Okay, that's clever, right? And then if I just make that go, go back the other way. Sorry, there are the figures.
Wow, look at that.
This is one of those. It suddenly popped up on Twitter/X. And I think it's the only place this guy is Korean, and he's using polymer clay. So that's I think it's Super Sculpey to sculpt that with resin heads. And yeah, he's using sprue to get the anatomy, and that's for Robert and me who have sculpted figures and will build our own armatures. That actually strikes me as being harder than doing a regular. I mean, it's to get those proportions right in a bit of sprue is actually quite tricky. Whereas I've used a diagram or something of an anatomy to get my proportions correct when I'm building an armature. But it would be a very quick way to get if you want to just mock up one of these sort of vignettes and sort of you could easily do that with sprue. And although you can't, in terms of when we're using wire to form an armature, you can go, I'll bend it like that, or maybe I'll bend it a little bit more, maybe I'll bend it a bit more, because it's wire and you can bend it back. You couldn't so easily do that with a bit of sprue in the way that guy had done it. But there are so many different ways, and every sculptor will have a favourite way of doing it. Robert would do his differently to mine, and I got mine from. I've tried various things. I think it's one of my favourite questions to a sculptor is, how do you make your armatures? because it's the core of the entire thing for sculpting.
And that pose is important, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I admire you guys that do that. I mean, that's a skill in and of itself, you know.
Yeah, I might be admiring them and begging them. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But so talking about sculpting, Robert, is there anything in which you would recommend or tell me to desperately avoid?
I think I know we were talking about exaggerated poses, but if you can get someone to take a photograph on you in as near as the pose you might want it to be, because that helps with the anatomy. I mean, it's not always possible. I mean, if you're falling over with your arms, you're not going to be able to achieve that without injuring yourself. But I do that quite a lot. Well, if I want to do a pose, and Catherine will go out with a camera and do a 360 of it, so you can then see how it works, and if possible, try and wear clothing that's of the same weight. It doesn't be exactly the same, so you can see where the creases are and how that affects, because that's one of the mistakes often made, is that either things are too creased or not creased enough to what actually the thing's made of. But those and then you've got there's lots to do, and if you're starting, use other heads. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I choose not to, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. Hands again, boots. Use the stuff like that, which is the hands, you've got to find the ones in the right pose, or you might just cut them off here and just add the fingers to it. But use those bits to speed the process up. And I, like Rob was saying, I use wire for armatures because you can move it about. I start off with a pelvis and a basic torso. And then move it about. But I would say, as I said right at the beginning, it's the positioning of the head is important. It's how the head attaches to that torso, and moving it around so it's not too static. I suffer from that in some of the figures I've sculpted. The head is too static, and so those are the keys. And what you do it in, it doesn't matter. I mean, I sculpt in clay. Called Beast Putty, which does have to be hardened in the oven, but I also use Magisculpt, which is an epoxy putty, but I use Milliput. And some of the people poo-poo Milliput for doing stuff these days. Some of the best work that's been done is done in Milliput, so don't worry about what material you're using. It's whatever suits you best. They're not, and things like spanners, wrenches, and things like that, you just buy them. They're all over the place. They'll give you that scale thing as well, which helps you then match your scale to the thing. You're not going to need weapons particularly, but things like that are, so do it that way.
I think you could just have a go at positioning some wire or the sprue, and then sticking some Milliput over top just to get a feel for it, and you'll probably find it's not as intimidating as people think it is. It's not easy. It's not easy, and by the time you get to the 80th figure, it's probably going to be really easy. But for you by then, that'll be more than most people do in a career. So
I'm still waiting for it to be easy, Rob. But also, yes, if you're like, even if you were just, you've got a figure you like it, but you just wanted the arms to be different. And you've got a hand, and your hands you're happy with, and you're putting the wire in to get and you can measure the length of the arm by another one from the kit that's the same size. So you can get that, but don't, when you've done it, do as on the mannequins Rob had there. Make sure you just do under it first, just a thin core, and let that set, and then build the rest up. If you try and go full arm onwards, it goes all over the place. It moves. And you just won't look right, and it also gives you a little bit of a how deep should I make creases, because there is actually a body underneath this item, so do that first.
And I would just add as well, one of my favorite tools for this sculpting thing is actually these are my dad's old tool making dividers, but they're very good for measuring consistent arm length there to be the same as that one, and I will often measure from an existing figure from a sculptor I've already got to make sure it's compatible, kind of thing. So you're going from, there you go, as a little dude, dancing dude, and so I've gone through and measured that is the same as that, all that kind of thing. So this kind of this is a very simple, useful tool to have for this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, I mean, again, yeah, exactly the same. And that you probably can't see very well. That is that's a figure of Richthofen sculpted by Mike Good, who I think is one of the best sculptors there is. That's always on my bench. Always, it's a 75mm figure. If I'm making a 75mm figure, I scale it to that because it gives you a 3D cue to where you want to be doing with it. So, and I use that a lot. So something like that's really helpful.
I do the same with Taesong Ham's stuff for 35th scale. Yeah. You use a really good example of something you'd like it to be at least near to, and get the proportions and things. You can have diagrams coming out of the ears, but having a good reference in front of you, how a crease would look that you'd like it to look like, I guess, is the key thing.
I think with the majority of the poses that are in my mind at the moment, the figures that I've got, I can manipulate by literally taking the arms off and put a bit of wire in and using the hand, etc. So I don't foresee doing a full figure, although I think there's a couple that I might not have any choice. But we'll see how it goes. And I think by starting with taking an arm off and changing the pose and maybe doing a bit of sculpting of the upper arm, etc., it's going to give me an insight as to what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. It'd be a little like practice work as such. And if I could do that with a couple of figures that if I don't really like how they come out, I can stick them at the back, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
So I've got lots of scope to play and practice before I get to the main event. So
if you're doing that as well, definitely photograph yourself in that pose. So that because because you'll see if people are converting, they want the arm like that, but they'll keep the shoulder like that, and they'll just stick the arm upwards, which just looks totally wrong. So it's that photograph, even if it is just an arm, get that photograph so you can see what your body's doing to create that.
Yeah,
that's a great way to start.
You've all but got to get into the butcher's mind of cutting that arm at the joint, literally into the joint.
I have a question for all of you. What kind of paints do you use?
That's a good one. But that was a question actually from Dom, wasn't it? Which we said we'd go back to. So what's your favourite paint and why is it your favourite paint? So let's just go around the room, shall we? Rob, because you just happen to be there, I'm going to pick on you first.
Right. So a lot of my stuff is currently done with AK Gen 3 paints, but I also am increasingly using Chimera pure pigment paints, which are really, really rather nice. But you kind of mix those together with these. I've got Vallejo model color and also scale 75 are used. I'm not scared of using some Citadel paint. So a little bit of everything, but I kind of like now Chimera colors, which is you are using colors that are described as oxides as opposed to German camouflage green, for example. So they are a proper pigmented you know what you're getting in the pot kind of thing, and you're mixing and learning that way. So I quite enjoy that.
And they're not called Snot Master Green or something.
No, Rhinox Hide. None of that stuff. Troll Slayer Orange. No, I've got this is called Orange.
What about you, Robert? When you're painting, what do you use?
Right. Well, I've started to do more painting. I try and do as little as possible. Done more. I paint. I undercoat in AK third gen. So it's an undercoat with that. That's the base color, and then it's all done in oils. Michael Roberts there. There's some Winsor and Newton. There's some Rembrandt, but the whole of the finish is all done in oils. So that's what I do.
Over to you, Gil. What sort of things do you use on your figures?
I use a variety of paints. I use a lot of Vallejo, Citadel. I've got the AK, the acrylics, the game colors, Tamiya. Iwata has a good one. The New World's quite expensive, but very, very, very good paint. But like Robert, my finishing is with oil paint. I'll base everything in my acrylics, but the finishing touches are all done in oils. Oils.
And you're also, as I remember, quite a lover of inks as well, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean that my process is prime, base, oils, inks, oils. So
right.
That's the way I do things. I use a lot of inks, different colors. I mix them up. Same thing with the oils. So my finishing, the base tone for what I lay down, for what I do. I mean, of course, you guys are a little smaller, but for what I do is my base tones, my base skin tone is laid down with the acrylics, and then I go in with inks, with pigments, then seal that, and then oils. Start layering oils, because the oils are very forgiving. You got a lot of time to work with them. The trick with oils is you can't lay them down thick, because I can lay down some oils and I can seal it that night. So it's how you lay it down. You're not, for what I do, Robert might be different, but for what I do, my oils are more of a tinting. It's more of it's a finishing touch is what it is. So I don't need them heavy. I just need them to tell a story. So when I'm layering them down, there's where my colors in the skin come in, the derma, the blotching, the 5 o'clock shadow, all that. So I don't have to lay them down thick. And this thing right here is your best friend, a little makeup sponge. You take that, you can still see there's a little, and when I'm done, I blot. Just very gently blot, and it's dry a few hours later. I can seal it. But yeah, that's the way I do it. I mean, a lot of inks and oils, acrylics, but mainly inks and oils.
Yeah, the ink work you do is, yeah. I can't get my head around it. I got to be honest. I've tried ink. Not very much, but I've tried it and I've never got on very well with it. And it's not because it's no good. It's about me not understanding it.
It's a process. I mean, I airbrush it. I don't brush paint. Most of what you see me do is done with an airbrush. The main stuff. It's when I go in with the brushes where the oils come in. The inks are airbrushed on. The acrylics are airbrushed on. The finishing touches are done with a brush with oils. Maybe a little pigment here and there, but oils, for the most part. I love using oils. I mean, I try to tell people that, I can't get it to dry. It's because you're laying it down too thick. You don't need to be heavy with the oils. I mean, oils, a good quality oil. A good quality oil paint is great. I mean, Robert, you probably had those tubes for years, right? I mean, you don't need a lot of it. You don't need a lot of it. And the one thing I tell people all the time, never use black for a shadow.
Yeah.
It's not natural. I mean, the shirt, I could put a light on it and there's 3 different colors in it, Yeah. So never use black as a shadow. I mean, it takes away from the effect that you're doing.
I totally agree with that.
Same as white.
I should add that I started off with oil paints in my early days of painting, and I never bought oils. I was given the oil paints my mum had in the 1950s, and these are still going from 1950 or so.
And that's and they don't make them like that anymore.
No, but don't. And the funny part is the oil paint I've got is from my grandma. And that's hardly any of it used.
James,
oil paints are brilliant.
I've got oils that I used to use. They're 15, 20 years old.
Yeah.
And it, you know, if I pull them out of the case there, you'd think I just bought them yesterday. I mean, because you don't use a lot, very little, and a good quality thinner too. You don't want to buy the cheap thinner. You get a good quality thinner, you know. So
I think one aspect of oil paints that we live in a golden time paint-wise. I think there's so much choice. There's so many. I've just read another company is going to come out with. I think is it Cult of Paint who do a YouTube channel. They're coming out with their own paint range. I heard, and that's yet another one to maybe look at, maybe not. But the one thing with the oil paints is that they don't provide you with a flesh tone. You mix your own flesh tones. You learn more through dealing with something like an oil paint, that I can pick up 3 or 4 different colours of Vallejo or AK, and I can mix the flesh tone with them. But that's where the Chimera goes back to basics again in many ways. They're acrylics, but they are pure pigment, so you are mixing colours together, and you're adding white or black to them to desaturate as you see fit. But it's learning to mix is a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, that is. When I do a thing on my channel, we do a painting thing, and we have 4 or 5 guys doing painting the same thing. And I try to stress to them, you know, I see color differently than what you see it, you know. So what I'm seeing in my head might not be what you're seeing, but there's always a ground. There's a rule you have to follow. There's a base that you have to follow. And then what you do after that is fine, you know. And like Rob was saying, you're right. There's so many choices of paint there that I don't have a favorite, you know. If I see a color and I'll use it, I'll buy it. I might like it, I might not like it. But there's as far as a favorite, I don't have a favorite. I'll use whatever's in front of me, you know.
It's one of the good things because I use Model Color as my main paint.
It's a good paint.
And the reason I bought it was because it was cheap. It's the only reason I bought it. The shop was closing down, and I could get a bag and just take whatever I could for as little as possible. But the one thing that I've always gone back to it, the reason I've always gone back to it is because there isn't an olive drab color as such. There's like 7 different olive colors that you mix together to get what you need.
Right.
And that really helps you understand the colors. And it's only relatively recently, and Rob is partly responsible, is the understanding how to paint a figure in layers of very thin paint and bringing out accentuating the highlights with the paint you've got on your palette, etc., etc.
Yes.
Once you do that once on a figure, you're like, oh my God, why on earth did I do it any other different way? And the joy of Model Color for me is I've got that ability. I can reach up and get an olive color that's incredibly strong, bright color,
and then you can mix,
stick it on an olive drab uniform just on the tip to bring out the highlight of that crease. The highlight, so the crease, the low light is accentuated by the highlight, and it's just it's just brilliant. And there, you're right, there are hundreds of different companies out there, and there's nothing wrong with the paints. They've got some great colors. I mean, the Two Thin Coats have got some amazing colors.
You know, the other one, I'm sorry, James, the other one that I failed to mention, I don't know if you guys can get it in the UK, is Pro Acro. This stuff right here, give me a second here.
Hi, Gillian.
That right there. The Pro.
Oh, yeah. That's the company.
Show that again, Gil. Sorry. Oh, okay.
This is some.
I've got some here. Look, there you go.
For me, I think this is probably the way I brush paint and airbrush, whatever. This is some very, very good paint. I mean, it's if you want, if somebody would ask her what's your favorite, I don't have one, but this is right up there. This paint, it is high. The pigment is beautiful. It thins beautifully. You can brush paint it. Airbrush is perfect, gorgeous. You know, I have the same. I mean, I could do that with my model color. The Vallejo. I love it. This stuff here is fastly becoming one of my top paints. I mean, I use it for everything, just about.
You can get it in Europe. A guy called I think Monument Hobbies, I think, have now opened a distribution center in France via a guy called Mally Anderson.
No, I'm sorry. It's Pro Acryl.
Hang on, let me just highlight that 1 second, Gil. Bear with me.
It's
there you go. So it's
Pro
PRO.
Pro Acryl.
I'm sorry, it's coming. Yeah, Pro Acryl.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's by a company called Monument Hobbies.
Yeah.
Very good paint. I'm sorry, Rob. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. Actually, I was just saying that. Yeah, Monument Hobbies have just a guy some of us know called Mally Anderson. He moved to France from the UK recently, and he's just become. I think they're the distributor of it in Europe. And I know recently I bought a couple of pots from a shop here in Bedford. So it's been in the UK for a while, if you know where to go.
And here's the value of it. This here in the States is going to run me anywhere from $5 to $7 to set it up. This one here, it's about $3.50, $4 US, and you get significantly more, and it's very good paint. So if you can get it, try it. I'm not sponsored by them at all. So I'm just saying, if these guys, they have a paint that they go to. I have a paint that I go to, that I basically go to, and that those are the paints that I use. Like with the Camara and all that stuff. How about you, Robert? What paints do you like to use? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hijack your feed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. No, don't apologize.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, the oils I use, again, a lot of it I've had for years, and the oils that I'm using, there's Michael Roberts, which you can get in the UK, and Winsor & Newton, and some of the Rembrandt stuff. So they're the ones that I go to, really for the quality of it. But and oil paint can be very expensive, but as you said, Gil, it lasts forever. I can't remember the last time I actually used a whole of a tube of oil paint for anything. So it does last forever.
Yeah, this stuff.
I think it's very similar to everything in this hobby, is that buy what you can afford. And if you can afford to spend that little extra on a tube of that sort of paint, it's worth the investment.
Yeah,
because it's going to last you time.
Yeah, that set's about 6 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had the full range. That set's about 6 years old. I don't foresee myself. This will probably outlive me.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Wonderful.
Well, James, I don't know if you want to call it now. It's over 2 hours now, and this is not getting any cooler.
Guys, Robert and Gil, thank you so much. It's been an absolute legend of a couple of hours to sit and talk to you and Nata. I've learned so much already. I just thank you so much for being involved with this. Malcolm, obviously, thank you so much for hosting and keeping me quiet as best you could. I appreciate that.
Loads of notes, mate.
And being my secretary, he's fantastic. Had lots of people watching, popping in and out, and some questions and stuff. That's just really brilliant. And like I said, if you watch this on a playback and you have a question or there's something that's come up that you're not quite sure what they meant or whatever, drop a comment on the video and I will get back to you, I promise. We have our next round table, which is going to be super exciting, I can tell you, because bear with me, I just want to double check that I am writing what I'm saying here. Yeah, so our next one is in a couple of weeks' time, on the 7th of September, and we're actually going to have a couple of people in the studio that make films. And we're going to talk about how we can transpose that element of their knowledge into what we do on our build. So it's all about cinematography, and Malcolm can say that word, I can't. And that's why I've done those storyboards. So we're going to talk about the storyboards. We're going to talk about how we can get those effects, etc., and maybe answer some of Robert's concerns that I am of leaving those sides open, how we can achieve those goals. So last words from you guys. Anything you want to just pop in there or say?
I think I've covered everything I can up till now.
For those watching, don't let anyone discourage you. You paint your vision. You know, paint your vision. Don't worry about what anybody else has to say to you. You know, it's your vision.
Absolutely.
You get better. You know, as you go on, you get better. But always, what's in here is what you do. You know, don't let anybody change your mind on that.
And to echo what Gil's saying there, and also remember that you don't always get better, you get worse, and then you get better again by learning from getting worse.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's going to be mistakes along the way, aren't there?
Oh yeah.
Mistakes are just happy accidents that you learn from.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all part of the journey. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for being in the studio. And until next time, we will see you all later.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank
Cheers
you.
all.